incidentally, I was in the middle of a work session having this conversation with council. A lot of people watching that. Some of those people watching that were the entirety of my detective division watching what was going to happen with this technology. And at 1 p.m. while I'm having this community conversation with council, we got our first hit on the LPR. If you could have been here to watch the number of staff that were running out of the building to try and chase down this really key investigative tip, you would have been impressed. I know I heard the stories because I was engaged. It was impressive. Then what transpired after that was just hours of locating the vehicle, locating a residence associated with the vehicle, which happened to be a local Airbnb, following the vehicle up and down the I-5 corridor through the communities of Corvallis, Albany, and eventually in Salem. And this is all happening over the course of that afternoon, into that night, over the course of the night. This group, we believe, committed a burglary in Salem while we were surveilling them. Certainly we were not so close that we could witness the burglary, but a burglary call went out while we were in Salem, in the neighborhood that we were at, following them back, identifying, again, where they were going to sleep for the night, and through surveillance being able to ascertain that they looked as if there was some evidence from that burglary from Salem that they were putting away, and being able to get the search warrant signed and serve that search warrant last night. We could have not done this without so many really key partners, aside from the work that we're doing. We have stood up a task force for this particular effort. It involves Wayne County Sheriff's Office, certainly Eugene Police Department, and Springfield. But the key piece of this is the involvement of our Wayne County District Attorney's Office. Having an assistant district attorney assigned to this task force and having such a great partner in DA Chris Perosa, who I firmly believe supports the use of the technology and what the technology is able to do in the prosecutability of these crimes. I'm really excited to be able to present this case to him and have him be able to present it in an effort to get a successful prosecution. So just really, really good work. It's like I said, it's stuff that you can't even make up. It's just unbelievable the amount of work that's happened over the last 24 to 48 hours. Again, proud of my team, proud of them suspending everything else that was going on in their personal lives for the last 48 hours and making sure that this is something that there's one thing I hope people get from this, and especially the victims in our community would get from my comments today, is that we're everybody's police department, and contrary to maybe some communication that's out there, the men and women of the Eugene Police Department work so hard on your behalf, and want to recognize that the victim-centered approach is the right approach when it comes to the way we do our work in the technology. So with that, let me just stop there. I know there's maybe going to be a ton of questions. I will tell you that there are going to be some investigative techniques that I'm not going to talk about, because we're not going to give away those trade secrets. There are some other aspects that are ongoing. Like I said, this is a fairly sophisticated group that we think has ties outside of this particular area, that have ties all over the Northwest nation, and most likely nationwide. So I certainly don't want to jeopardize the investigations that are happening in other jurisdictions. So with that, I'll just open up for a couple of questions. Yeah, we'll just start after that.
Chief Peter, Rebecca Hanson, Mike LPC. So these 7 people, do we feel, the police feel very confident they were linked to all of the burglaries last year, or the ones with like Tigers? I mean, how do they connect together?
Yeah, that's part of what we're trying to do. What I will say is that the burglaries from last year, we made some arrests on those. We honestly think it's the same kind of parent organization that's perpetrating this crime, and these are kind of different actors within that. What I will say, though, is the MO, for instance, the way they operate is very, very similar to what we're seeing in other jurisdictions. And one of the tips that I would give our community members, oftentimes what they do is they will pose as delivery drivers. In this particular case, this was on the October 6th one. It was a pizza delivery driver that was part of the suspect group. And so as our community members think about how they can ensure that they're not going to be victims of crime, I think it's part of that is making sure we're paying attention to kind of what's going on around us with the delivery driver. We know when it looks right and maybe when it looks wrong. part of how we solved this case was some surveillance footage that we had, although grainy, that helped us identify a vehicle that we were able to put into the system. So we actually had community's ability to gather video surveillance helped us solve this crime, and so ring cameras and those types of things are so important. So, if I was a betting person, I would say that there is some ties there, but we are certainly continuing to take a look at that. We don't want to jump to too many conclusions until we get a chance to look at all the facts. I'm just going to go this way, you guys go.
Okay. Can you just clarify where exactly the local Airbnb was? What neighborhood that was in?
Yeah, it's in the 2400 block of Skyline.
Okay.
And, and that's where we served that search warrant last night. There'll be a press release there for you that has some of those details in the event that you missed that on the front end of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could I ask one more?
Sure.
Just, could you just clarify some of the tactics? I mean, you said the delivery, fake deliveries.
Yeah.
But anything else, like how exactly are they identifying homes and businesses to target?
No, it's a great question, and I think what we've seen from years past and in this is that this has been fairly targeted. One of the commonalities that we're seeing, especially in the Asian home burglaries, is that the commonality is that they're business owners. So what we believe is happening is they're actually looking for businesses owned by Asian members of our community, and then through that and through a lot of somewhat sophisticated intelligence gathering, trying to identify where those individuals live and where their personal residence is. There's some belief, as near as I can tell, there's some belief by these people that if you happen to own a business, then you're also a person of wealth. Anybody that owns a business would tell you sometimes the business owns you more than you own the business, and so it doesn't always equate to that. But that's what they believe, is that if you're a business owner, that somehow there's wealth, and that your wealth is stored in your home. And obviously they've been successful enough that they continue to recycle the same strategy. But that seems to be the connectedness here. So far, I can't speak to the other communities. I know that we have potentially one that's happened in Springfield, and certainly I don't know the details of the one that just happened in Salem, but at least the ones that we have here, that seems to be the commonality. Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask if you could clarify the range of charges these 7 individuals are facing. I understand it is on the press release here, but there are 7 of them. Have you guys identified, is there a hierarchy that they kind of report to? Was there one that appeared to be a ringleader or something like that? I mean, is it too early to say? What have you noticed from these 7 individuals?
Yeah, I'm going to be a little bit careful about how much I say about kind of the hierarchy and what we do know. But what I will say is the charges are going to be burglary in the first degree and the conspiracy to commit burglary, just because of the amount of work that went into what we believe, as we were following them up through Corvallis and Albany, we believe that there were potential other targets they were looking at in those other communities before they ended up in West Salem to commit that particular burglary. Those are felony charges, all 7 of them on felony charges right now. We are going to package this up and hand it to the DA's office and let them robustly prosecute these individuals. What I would say, though, is we believe that these are just the workers. These are the ones that are well-financed. We believe that they're provided with vehicles to do this work. They're provided with some direction from somewhere to target these different individuals. It's probably not a shock that when you think about the burglaries that are happening, they're up and down the I-5 corridor. When you think about the ingress, egress. In my council work session, I talked about the vulnerability of having Eugene on the I-5 corridor, how easy it is to get in and out of town. The access to our city is super easy. I saw that when I was working up in the Corvallis area. I saw that when I was working up in the Portland area. It's just known. I-5 corridor cities have a higher propensity for certain types of crime because of the access to the freeway. And so I think in that way it's targeted. But we do think that there's more to this. This is just not a smash and grab. This is not 7 people in our community doing a smash and grab burglaries that we just couldn't find. Trust me, we would have been well ahead of the game if that was the case. This is a well-financed, well-organized, very sophisticated tactically around how they conduct surveillance, use multiple cars, switch license plates, all of that stuff. And those are some of the contributing factors that makes it hard for us to play catch-up until we can. And then the minute we got that piece of information that put us actually ahead of the game for the first time in this investigation, you saw how quickly we were able to bring this to resolution.
Chief, I have 3 brief questions
Sure.
for you.
First, you touched on this a little bit during your statement, but was there any evidence seized from the Airbnb connecting these suspects to this?
We're still processing that. What I'll tell you is that likely when we serve a search warrant, there'll be evidence of the crime or evidence of these crimes in that Airbnb, and so we're processing throughout this day. We've been processing that scene. We also seized 4 vehicles, which we believe were used in the commission of these crimes, and we'll be doing that. And then there's some other property that we're seizing. So, when we serve a search warrant, it takes a certain amount of time for us to be able to process the entire scene and gather evidence and get it down to our evidence control unit, document everything that we have, and then figure out what pieces of that evidence fit into the puzzle for future prosecution. So we'll probably know more of that in the future.
And do these suspects appear to be foreign nationals, as mentioned in the past?
Yeah, we don't know. As you know, we would never inquire about your country of origin. We're prohibited to ask those questions. Quite frankly, it makes no difference to me. A criminal is a criminal in our community. I don't care where you're from. I would say that it appears as if English is not their first language. That's about as much as I can ascertain from what I've heard from detectives and during this investigation. So at this point, I don't know what nationality they are. I know that in the past investigations would suggest, and the arrest would suggest the origin was from somewhere in South America, but I don't know if that's the case here.
And do you plan on attending the AAPI Public Safety Forum on the 23rd of this month to talk with community members?
Yes, I've been invited to that along with Chief Resch over in Springfield, and I think DA Perosa is going to be there. So I will be there to be able to talk with the members of our community.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I had a question. Earlier you mentioned burglaries since August kind of picking up again. Is there a number of burglaries that you believe have targeted people of Asian descent? And what is that number for Eugene or?
4 burglaries since August, all of which very consistently have targeted Asian community members. I believe all 4 of them are business owners. I think there's some real commonality there. Those are the ones that I know of in our jurisdiction. Detectives have connected with other jurisdictions, and I can't speak to their statistical numbers, but I can tell you that we're having conversations with other jurisdictions because of some of the similarities that we're seeing. So what we're hoping that we were able to do today is also positively affect other jurisdictions' communities. That remains to be seen, but this is part of law enforcement. This community comes together, this law enforcement community comes together. We recognize, especially Eugene, Springfield, Lane County, we recognize that we share bad guys in this particular case, and that when good police work happens in one jurisdiction, it affects us all. Just like when bad police work happens in a jurisdiction, it affects us all. So in this particular case, I love the fact that we're able to talk about the good police work that's happening.
And just to clarify,
Sure.
It sounds like evidence developed linked these suspects, these 7 individuals, to the October 6th burglary. Is there any evidence developed that would link them to these other 3 or additional burglaries at this time?
I will tell you that I hope so, but we don't know yet until we process the scene, see what evidence we've been able to collect that somehow might tie them back to the other burglaries. So we're gonna claim the win on the October 6th burglary right now. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to clear other cases, but that's part of the ongoing investigation, is we have to be able to connect those dots. But I'll take this win for right now.
A lot of good advice and information for business owners on how to protect their property, close up, lock up, very important stuff. But if I am an Airbnb owner or if I'm renting my home out, how am I supposed to be aware of possible criminals in my home? I mean, how do you guys identify that and advise to Airbnb owners?
I don't know the owner of this particular Airbnb, so I will say that. I don't know. But I can only imagine how mortified I'd be if I felt like my Airbnb housed criminals in our community that were victimizing our people. I mean, and so no fault of theirs. I mean, when you're in that business to rent out your Airbnb, you're doing the very best you can to vet the people that are going to be there and then provide that value. I know how that goes. So no value statement or value judgment on Airbnb owners. I would just say that you just continue to be vigilant on how you vet your renters. And if there's ever a moment that you feel like something's not right or it's just not sitting well with you, certainly think about whether the revenue is going to be as important as the outcome. And then if there's ever anything that feels suspicious, you can always call us, because there may have been a piece of information, and I don't know this, but there may have been a piece of information that a Airbnb owner may have had that would have been really, really important to our investigation, because we've been kind of ongoing with our investigation. So never underestimate how what may seem like a really insignificant piece of information, how it could be the turning point in an investigation. Yeah.
I may have missed this, but regarding the ALPR technology, I know the news release talked about ALPR access from multiple jurisdictions were helpful in this case. Can you confirm whether or not cameras in Eugene specifically got a hit on this vehicle, or was it just when it was elsewhere?
Yeah. I will tell you that the cameras in Eugene are what found our main suspect vehicle. That's what started this off. We were able to ascertain where that was. And if you've been paying attention to the way ALPR works, what it is it's a camera, a fixed camera that takes a still photograph of a vehicle and its rear plate at a moment in time on the open public roadway. All of them are pointed at an intersection or on a roadway. And then it's up to us as investigators to say, this vehicle was last seen in this particular area, knowing that it may be in the area but not knowing where it was. And it was some great work by patrol and investigators to canvass a likely area to find this vehicle at our location on Skyline. And from there, we were able to make some confirmation. So it was the ALPR technology originated in Eugene. What I will say, though, is the other jurisdictions up and down the I-5 corridor that also have this technology were instrumental in helping us place the suspect vehicles. Like I said, we seized 4 vehicles. There were 4 different vehicles used in this whole operation by these suspects. Being able to place these vehicles at moments in time in these different communities are so critical to the successful prosecution. So I'll tell you that ALPR technology up and down the I-5 corridor was instrumental in confirming what we thought we were seeing, and will also be really important in the prosecution.
So just to clarify, with the initial hit in Eugene, was that able to basically allow officers to follow that vehicle to the Airbnb, or how would you describe exactly how that helped?
Yeah, so like I said, the hit in Eugene was at a moment in time at a particular location in that general area. So we don't have ALPR technology in neighborhoods. It's in our ingress, egress, main arterials, and so we had an ALPR hit in that general area. It took us a few hours to find the vehicle, and ultimately we were able to find the vehicle. And so that's really how that went down. This technology does not track a vehicle to its final resting place. It is just a snapshot of a moment in time at a point in time where it crossed in the path of that camera. And then it's up to us to actually do good old-fashioned police work to actually find the vehicle.
So it sounds like even if there had not been a camera hit in Eugene, you did have a little bit of information about the vehicle, and you would have been looking for the vehicle in Eugene.
No, that's not correct. That's not correct. So what we had originally is we had grainy photos of what we believed to be a suspect vehicle, just a color and make of the vehicle. What we were able to do is put that into the ALPR to give us an idea of when ALPR has seen vehicles that look like that car. And then it gave us a hit with a license plate attached to that car out of California. And then from there, we were able to verify that's exactly the vehicle we were looking for. So we really didn't know what we were looking for until we were able to leverage the ALPR technology to better do that. So, and the other thing I would say is, even with a suspect vehicle, even if we had a really good suspect vehicle description, I've got 50 square miles and 178,000 people. I mean, I don't even know where to look for it. what the ALPR was able to do is really focus an area for us, because we saw that vehicle hit in one location, constantly monitored the system to notice that it didn't hit anywhere else in the city, which would lead you to believe that maybe the vehicle has stopped and parked somewhere, and it led us to that particular general area, and that's how we found the vehicle. Yeah, go ahead.
So given the success of the flock cameras in this case especially, but recent cases, what's your reaction to the city council's unanimous vote on the flock cameras?
Yeah, you know, it's hard, right? Because what I'm asked to do is be hired to actually bring the best operational strategy to combat crime in our community. We have to leverage technology. I mean, with our constrained human resources and constrained financial resources, technology is going to be the force multiplier that we take into consideration. And this is an industry standard practice across the country that has immeasurably improved our solvability of crime in law enforcement. So I totally understand the level of fear that some people have around the concept of added surveillance or added technology that is watching, what we're doing. But for me, when I think about bringing technology, when I think about doing this kind of work that the police department does, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to send a message that we're not open for criminal business in Eugene. Take that business somewhere else. And so I think we have to be mindful that we work in a industry that assumes a lot of risk. Every single day we risk our lives, and we risk, in some respects, our community's lives. Anytime I'm driving a 3,500-pound automobile almost as fast as I can to get to an emergency situation, it's a risk. And so instead of being risk avoidant as we move forward, we can certainly minimize and mitigate risk, and I'm all for that. But I think we have to be careful not to just be so risk avoidant that we don't recognize, in this particular case, how valuable the technology can be in solving crime. And this is one of many examples. We've been, our media relations department here has been fantastic about putting out all of the success stories. And the thing that I would just say as I end this kind of monologue around this is, every single one of these success stories, don't forget there's a victim attached to that. Victim of stolen vehicle, a victim of homicide in some cases, victims of robbery, victims of sexual assault, victims of domestic violence. That's the voices that we don't hear sometimes. And so in this particular case, we have Asian American community members that were victims of burglaries, and this particular technology kind of spoke up for them.
Chief, I know that, so the city council, I think their vote was to ask the city manager to turn them off until a community conversation can happen. And when I reached out to her, she said, I'm going to assess the public safety implications and then make a decision. Is that a conversation you're having with her right now? Are they still on right now? What's that like? Yeah,
no, the city council motion that passed was to pause the use until they could have further conversation. So I was pleased that it wasn't just an outright, turn them off, we're done. Anytime you're still having conversations, a good thing. And I'm happy to do that and lean into that. What I'll say is, yes, City Manager Maderi and I have met since then. We've talked a little bit about strategy. As you can imagine, as this was unfolding while we were having the work session, I shared with her operationally what was going on and the importance of not being too quick to pause them until we were able to see if the technology could continue to help us in this particular investigation. I will be reconvening with her on Monday to see about path forward, and we had to reach out actually to the company and see about the mechanics of that. It's not as easy as just flipping a light switch. There's a little bit more to it. Could take 24, 48 hours for us to be able to do that. And depending on what path we go down, there's some other potential contractual implications. So we're talking about it. And I'm fully engaged in that, and I understand and appreciate council's opinion and their authority in this matter, and that they're a policy. They're going to set policy for the city. That's my job to try and do the very best I can with the policy that they set. I recognize that. I'm hoping to be able to bring my industry-specific expertise to the conversation and hoping that that's taken into consideration.
I know, in terms of the people arrested, do you know their place of residence? And if so, do you know if any of them would be considered Wayne County residents or Eugene residents?
Yeah. don't know anything about the suspects other than names and dates of birth. And you can see these are individuals ranging from the ages of 24 to 44 that were all a part of this together, but don't have any background. Again, as the investigation continues to be pulled together, doing good background on suspects will be a part of that. But as of right now, I don't know the details of the suspects.
Any immediate next steps for the police department that you could explain how this investigation will continue? I think you just talked a little bit about that, but what else?
Yeah, I think what you'll see is us really spending a lot of time with our partner agencies that have seen similar things happening and seeing if the people that we were able to arrest today are also the suspects in their communities. What I'm really hoping at the end of the day is we solve a bunch of burglaries, honestly, for a variety of communities. That would be my best outcome, is not only we're serving victims in Eugene, but the public safety system is actually serving victims in other communities. So I can assure you that our detectives are connected with other detectives in other jurisdictions, and we'll see if we can get across the finish line on those.
Probably my last question is about the alert last night.
Yeah.
And also the search for the suspects. What can you say about what was used to find the suspects? What can you say about where the suspects were found, if they were found together,
Yeah.
and also about the issuance of the alert itself, why that was an important step
Yeah.
for the police to take?
Yeah. No, it's a good question because, people get that in the middle of the night. I remember, felt like it went out sometime before midnight last night. And people are often left with, when you get a shelter-in-place notice, there's a lot of questions. What's going on? Everybody wants to know what's going on. That was issued as a result of those suspects fleeing the house, and we were in active pursuit in neighborhoods of our suspects. Anytime that happens, we want people to shelter in place. The last thing in the world we want to do is be chasing a bad guy and not tell people to shelter in place and have some unwitting homeowner walk out and want to know what's going on while we're running around with a canine or we're running around with a tactical team. You can see that we want to avoid that conflict at all costs, and so that's why we use that alert system to do that. In this particular case, it went out because they fled. We had one individual actually flee to a abandoned or empty home and break in there, and we were able to apprehend them. But the techniques, this is where our canine team is so good. They're so good at what they do, being able to track individuals that are doing that, and then our tactical operators. We could go in a completely different conversation about their perception of tactical operators in police departments, in particular the Eugene Police Department. They're so skilled at what they do, so good at what they do. They train so hard. Being able to lock that down, serve that search warrant, find these individuals is just an entire team effort last night to be able to get this done. Everybody knew their role. Everybody was ready to go, and it's fun. It's fun as a chief to be able to stand up here and talk about your people like that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you said that was your last question, and now here we go.
Maybe it was, but I think the release talked about at least 7 individuals. So my question was, at this time, is it known if there's any other person of interest outstanding that was not found last night, or do you just not know if?
There's no indication that we have anybody else we're looking for. Now, that doesn't say that there's not other people that are involved in this thing, but as far as what we're hoping to accomplish, the 7 are what we grabbed. So.
Last question from you, Chief.
Sure.
When you mentioned about the resources that were used last night, we had a mention of canine. How many officers does it take to typically respond to an incident like this?
A lot.
Would you say at least a dozen?
What I would say is, we are about ready to watch the University of Oregon beat the pants off of the University of Indiana tomorrow, right? The number of people that it takes for us to run that game is about the number of people that we had involved in this thing last night. 60-ish from EPD. By the time you think about the number of investigators that were involved, the number of special investigation unit people that were involved, the number of drone operators that put drones in the air, the number of patrol officers that were used from the moment this came out to the fruition of this particular thing, it's a ton of resources. It's a ton of resources. So we're very blessed to have that many resources to be able to throw at this. And the last thing I would say is love doing this work. So it's all hands on deck. So, yeah.
Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Seal this gap.